Disclaimer: if you are offended by the odd bad word, honest opinions, open debate, or insightful discussions, then perhaps you should listen to another podcast. Maybe about gardening or something. Whatever. Welcome to episode 1 of the Copycats podcast, a podcast for creative people working in marketing. So whether you are writer, designer, art worker, creative director, basically if you've got any creative role in marketing, then this is the podcast for you, basically. We are conscious that there is SMEs, enterprise, agency side, client side, freelancers, variety of people, variety of options. But if you are in this industry and you've got a creative role, then this is the podcast for you, basically.
Yeah. So why should you listen to us? Kenny here has 15 years experience working in the industry. He's worked for a range of big name clients and he is a pro at what he does. I've been in the industry for the past 2 years. I've got a degree in creative writing and I love words. And so, that's why you should listen to us. And ultimately what we're trying to do here is create a community for other people in the industry. We want you to have a voice and we want you to be able to communicate with us about what you want to hear about so that we can actually create something worth listening to. We want to create something that's useful because when I first started out, there wasn't anything like this. And I really could have used a podcast that taught me the real fundamentals of how to be a good copywriter and just about the industry in general.
Yeah, ultimately. I mean, one of the things that we have talked about is if we don't know an answer, we're not going to make it up. We will literally say to you guys, we don't know what the deal is with this, and we're going to throw the door open for you guys to tell us. That's what it's about. This is as much your podcast as it is ours, basically.
Definitely, yeah.
And the perfect illustration of that is the logo that we use.
Yeah, so we're lucky enough to work with a range of really talented designers, one of which Hayley Canal, who designed our Copycats logo for us. So we just want to say a big thank you to her for doing that. We really appreciate it.
Very much so. And I think for those of you who've been following us on social media for the last couple of weeks, first of all, a big thanks. It means a lot to us. Secondly, what it's done is throw a bit of a spanner in the works with regards to planning, because Harriet and I have sat down and worked out, without interviewing any of our friends, colleagues, people in the industry, designers, all of whom we are planning on talking to as part of this podcast, we've actually come up with at least 12 different episodes just on things like planning, briefing, social media, interactive content, the importance of research. We've got all of this covered. All of that is coming in the next few weeks and months as we go through the podcast series. But having said that, when we threw the door open to you guys and asked you to get involved and tell us what you would like to hear, it threw up loads and loads and loads of questions. So we've basically scrapped the plan for this episode. We've decided that we'll start as of next episode talking about the plans and the things that we're going to do long term. But this particular episode, we're going to dedicate to you guys. We're just going to throw it open. We're going to do the Q&A. We've got a lot of the questions. We've got a lot of the names, so we'll give you shout outs on an individual basis. And we'll just go through them. You happy with that?
Yeah.
Cool.
Okay, so these questions have come from Reddit. We asked you what grinds your gears in terms of marketing and working as creatives in marketing. So our first question comes from Boobia13, I want to say. Boobear.
Yep.
That is what that says, isn't it?
Yep, we'll go with that.
What grinds my gears is errors. How are businesses still putting out copy with mistakes?
That's a fundamental. That is a fundamental. Not necessarily, and I'm not giving copywriters a free pass by any means. You guys should be checking this stuff. That's a basic. But having said that, what we are seeing in the industry and what we're hearing a lot from other copywriters is things are being done faster, they're being done cheaper, they're being done a lot more on a shoestring and a lot more under pressure. Now, that doesn't negate the need to do your job effectively and to do your job properly. But ultimately, the three options for anybody looking for copy is you can have it quick, you can have it cheap, or you can have it right. You need to pick one. Mm-hmm. That's the way it goes. Yes, there's people in the industry that could potentially do it fast and do it cheap and do it good. Why put the pressure on them? This is a creative job. It's not one of those things we can do at the drop of a hat. You know, we need the time to think. We need the time to do jobs effectively. And you and I see that. You and I see that. And this is one of those things where we will have minimum work periods, basically. If somebody comes to me or Harriet and says, I want a blog, 4 hours. Yeah. I won't take a blog in under 4 hours. It might only be 500 words, but I'm going to need that time to research, write, and then properly check, correct, edit, so that when it does go across, it's a better quality job.
And you should always have somebody else. If you can get somebody else's eyes on your work, do it. Like whenever we do a job, we always switch. So we'll proof each other's work, because when you've been staring at a bit of copy for the past 4 hours, you just lose all sense of where the errors are.
Very much so. Yeah. And again, that was one of the things I used to do. Was even if you're not available, I will find somebody who I know is not bad at writing. Yeah. And I know it sounds terrible getting somebody who's not a professional copywriter to read your copy, but at least it's somebody who's got some aspect of grammar, layout, that kind of thing. As long as you can get that other pair of eyes on it, you're good to go.
And one of the other things you told me when I first started out was to read your work out loud, because it's not just about mistakes. It's if your work isn't flowing properly, that's an error in itself. So if you need to check the flow, and in order to do that, read it out loud, see how it sounds.
And that's something you and I teach a lot of people, and I don't see a lot of people doing it. Mm-hmm. And that's what grinds my gears, is the fact that you and I put a lot of time into the workshops and training and stuff, and then you don't see them reading it out loud. Mm-hmm. And I think it's because it's the embarrassment factor in all of this. But the value you get from reading it out loud, like you said, the flow, if you read it out loud and you pause, stop, anything whatsoever, you know there's something wrong.
Exactly.
And it's just, it's one of those things I see people not doing and then coming to me and I'm going, how did you not notice that? Do you know what I mean? Simple stuff. So ultimately, we're all under pressure and we're all trying our best. But that's a good one. Read it out loud. You know, if you don't have a lot of time, at least read it out loud and get it working for yourself. Mm-hmm. The next question we've got is, again, from Reddit. Here we go. How are you pronouncing that name?
The Yash Bihard Waj.
Yep, we'll go with that. Okay. Cool. What grinds my gears is the number of people trying to fake stuff or create fake hype or pressuring people, triggering FOMO with scarcity marketing and just faking it all along. So many gurus popping up selling BS courses.
One of the things that we've kind of made clear from the start is we want to cut the bullshit out of marketing. That's been one of the things that drove us to start this podcast in the first place, and that includes people claiming to know some secret that you need to pay them to find out. That's not what we're looking to do. We want to talk about the fundamentals of great copy and great creative. And and scarcity marketing isn't that.
No, and again, the thing with the scarcity marketing, and back in my days of B2C copywriting, you were just desperately trying to get the next campaign or the next promotion to work. So everything was limited time offer. After the third or fourth limited time offer campaign, people start to realise this might not be a limited time offer. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. If you've had a sale on for the last 5 years, people aren't going to be fussed about it. Mm-hmm. And equally, if your product is a good enough product, the benefits should be selling it. Yeah. You should be able to use those benefits to sell it as a writer, as a designer. This idea about, it's just this fear of missing out thing. There's got to be a better way of doing it. And I honestly think it comes back to something we're going to discuss a lot on this podcast, is the sweet spot between pain points and product benefits. Yeah. When you find that sweet spot between what is your audience actually struggling with and what does your product bring to them to solve that problem, that's when you get the real good quality marketing and, as it turns out, results. And that, I think, is going to do away with a lot of this sort of scarcity marketing, because that's ultimately what it is.
Yeah.
Cool.
Okay, so our next question comes from Nutella247.
Good name.
Mm-hmm. I'd love to hear about education and degrees. I know great designers who went to good schools and amazing art directors who didn't go to school at all. What kinds of things can or cannot be taught at design or ad school?
Cool. You crack on, mate, because this is right up your street.
So, I mean, I can honestly say most of the things that I know, almost everything I know about copywriting, I was taught by Kenny when I first went to the agency that we work at now. I did my master's degree in creative writing. It taught me a lot about storytelling, which has been relevant in the time that I've been at our agency. But it didn't teach me how to copyright. It's not the same thing. And yeah, I haven't studied a degree in marketing, so I don't know how much that differs. For me, the discipline of a degree has been really useful. Yeah. Sitting down, having to write a 10,000 word dissertation in a period of time, working to a deadline, that's huge in our industry, as I'm sure everyone will know. But you can get, if you're willing to put the graft in, if you're willing to write every day, that's what will make you a good copywriter above everything else, is the dedication to write.
Yeah. And I put that on Twitter the other day, funny enough. You cannot buy the experience.
Exactly.
You know as well as I do, you've been working in copyright now for 2 years. You must be well over 200 briefs.
Yeah. Easy.
That's how you learn. And again, that's how I learned. That was fundamental to me becoming a copywriter. My background is graphics design. And when I say background, I mean really far back. I graduated with a degree in graphics design. From graduation, I've done nothing with it. I completely lost interest in it. I haven't used it. And I basically just went about picking up jobs here and there. Ended up in a big old organisation, basically in online gaming, and they had a marketing team who was needing a copywriter, and I applied for that job, not because I wanted to be a copywriter, but because I hated the job I was doing in customer support. You know, it was just, if I can just get out of this call centre and find another team in the business, I might be okay. And I went for the interview, and I called a bluff. I was at my depth, you know, and I said, look, whatever I need to do to get this job, tell me and I'll do it. And the woman, good on her, called my bluff and said, okay, here's a reading list, go away, I'll see you in 2 weeks. And I went away, I read every copywriting book, every idea, concept that I could find. Cheeky as I was at the time, I then used that information to audit all of the content and copy that they'd done up to that point and say, you know, I think this is wrong and I think this could be better. Anyway, I got that job and I started as a junior copywriter. The money wasn't even much better than it was in the call centre. But what it did is it got me in the door. And from that point on, I just grinded job after job after job. And for the first 3 months, I didn't write anything that went out the door. Yeah. It was just a lot of internal, just trying to show that I had any kind of understanding of copywriting. And then they slowly but surely spoon-fed me more jobs. And I mean, me and you always joke, I spent the first 2 years of my career writing pop-up ads.
Yeah.
It was the best start because no one reads them. Do you know what I mean? So it was, I could take the time to learn the craft and try different things. And then eventually I sort of built up. I went junior copywriter, moved up senior copywriter, and then head of content. But that had nothing to do with what I learned at university. Like you said, the discipline of learning that was great, you know, but I was under no reservations whatsoever that when I started, I was a junior copywriter and I had to just keep grinding. And again, I think we talked about this last week. I think I must now be into sort of 3,000-4,000 briefs in my career. Do you know what I mean? And that's, you can't buy that. You know, there's no degree, there's no college course that teaches that. You just have to get in and keep doing it every day. So yeah, by all means, get the degree, study the courses. I have seen it help a lot of people. But just remember, when you come out of college or university, you're at square one. You've got to build up that portfolio and you've got to keep writing. So yeah, you happy with that?
Yeah.
Cool.
One thing I will say is something I've seen pop up on Reddit in the past, on the copywriting subreddit, is people who are looking for an in to start copywriting.
Yeah.
And they just can't get the clients and they can't get a job in an agency. They just don't have the experience. So volunteering your services to anyone just to get practice, I think is really useful. For me, I started copywriting on the Content Mill site and it paid terribly, but it got me that experience for just churning out copy all the time, every day, 5+ briefs a day. And it forces you to write.
Yeah.
That's what you need. Just, or just make up something and have a go.
That is a good one. They did that for the first 3 months, and I was a junior copywriter. It was like a bowling alley that had a family night promotion or something, and I would just sit there and just spend hours on this for a made-up client, but it was the chance to do it. And that goes for everybody. I mean, I still do it. Last year, a plumber in my hometown done a door drop of letters offering boiler coverage or something. And all the features and benefits of his little idea, of his little promotion he was doing was there, but it was dreadful. It was horrifying. So I phoned this guy up off the back of this email, and of course he's freaking out going, oh, we've got a customer. And I went, right, first of all, I'm not having the boiler covered, but what I will say is if you give me a day, I'll come back tomorrow and I'll give you a fresh version of that letter and get you some results. And he did it. He went for it. And that's still an opportunity for me. Like I'm saying, it doesn't matter how long you've been doing this, every chance to write is something you've got to take. Yeah. You've just got to get involved and keep doing it. And I can only imagine that goes for designers as well, because when you think of the people we hang about with, they're the same. They will take on any job, I don't think there's been a wedding or birthday invite that hasn't come through our team for their friends, families, all that kind of stuff. Yeah.
And you see some of the hard graft they put in, you get the designers on their lunchtimes just working on their own work, just in that half hour they get for their break, just to keep practicing.
Very much so. And that's it. And that is it. Fundamentally, just keep doing it and getting a bit better every time. What's the next one? I'd love to hear about education. Okay. From valuable_K. What I'd really like to hear is hard teaching, although I understand that people usually want to charge money for truly useful and actionable information. I think this person's come to the right place. This is not what we're about. We're doing this for free. We've got no sponsors. We're not affiliated with any business. We're literally doing it off our own back, so people like valuable_K can get the benefits. We're just going to talk about our experiences, how we do things, what we know works for us, things to be wary of in future. So I think, like I said, we've got 12 episodes, not even including interviews coming up. So just keep listening and we'll cover as much of that kind of stuff as we possibly can.
Yeah, and this is an opportunity for us to learn from you as well, because I'm sure there's stuff copywriters out there know that we don't, that we can learn, and anyone in creative.
Yeah, very much so.
Okay, what we got next then? Okay, so would love to hear about introductions to the advertising world and first jobs from Kid Philly 20. So we've kind of jumped in a little bit to how we both got started. As I say, I did my first degree in film and English, and then I did my master's in creative writing. Got on a Content Mill site, just churned out copy, really terrible copy day in, day out. Then I started, I used that copy to get a job at the agency we now work at. Mm-hmm. And then forced Kenny to be subjected to my terrible writing for the first 6 months. And then started to really learn what copywriting actually is.
You're right. I think, not that you're writing. What I think helped with you is the creative writing degree. I honestly think that you had an understanding of narrative, that you knew that going in at face value was not, at least in sort of content marketing, when we're talking about long-term lead nurturing and content and that kind of stuff, you had a very clear idea from day one that there had to be some sort of storyline or some kind of arc that we took them on to get those results. That's something I didn't know, because I started in B2C and then I went to B2B, and it all became very different. And there was a lot of, at least in my instance, was a lot of running to catch up, and a lot of, why is what I was doing for B2C not working for B2B and vice versa. But for you coming in with the creative writing background, there was definitely a good foundation there.
Yeah, I would say
storyline.
So. Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
And I mean, you sat me down on one of my first days and you took me through the marketing funnel, which was like, I had no idea before. Yeah. Top of the funnel, middle, bottom, and the sort of content that works best in those places in the funnel. And that provided me with knowledge I use every day.
Yeah. And that's definitely something we're going to cover. Yeah. Definitely we'll cover that in a future episode, because that is vital. ultimately it helps you position your thinking versus the audience's thinking versus where they are in the sales process. All of that, we'll cover it. But yeah, that's how we got started. Okay, what have we got here? Helter Stash, great name. Okay, finally a podcast for copywriters. Can't wait for the episode to drop. What grinds my gears lately is how other people in the marketing world easily underestimate what copywriters do. Anyone can write is what they'll always say.
This is one for you, I think, to rant on.
I mean, yeah, I'm conscious of the time, but I could go to town on this in a big way. This is one of those things that I have fought tooth and nail for years, and I think I'm now at a place where I'm just accepting of that as something we deal with. It's just something that happens. A lot of people think they can write emails. A lot of people think they can do what copywriters do. Good luck to them.
Yeah.
Good luck to them. It's a horrible thing to say, but it ain't my business. And if you want to have a stab at it, fill your boots. I know what's going to happen. I've seen it happen. Copywriting is just such a deep job. You know as well as I do. You and I are now looking at sort of, I don't want to say philosophy or anything like that, but we're definitely going down real deep psychological routes. You know, we're looking at psychology, we're looking at personal profiles of buyers and that kind of stuff. You know, the things that you and I do on a daily basis, almost as a knee-jerk reaction to getting a brief, is the reason why we're valued at what we're valued at, ultimately. If you want to write your own email for your own small business or for your own team or for whatever purpose, crack on. Like I've seen it recently. One of the quotes was, if you think it's expensive hiring a professional copywriter, hire an amateur one. Yeah. Because the lost opportunity, I think, is massive. If you're sending emails or direct mails or even social ads or anything like that, if you approach those people with a substandard message and substandard copy, the first occasion when they realise that it's garbage, you've lost them. Yep. That's it. You know,
you only get that one opportunity, that first headline, and if they're gone, you've lost them forever. That's
exactly. Yeah. Exactly. And this is what I see a lot of these people who are trying to write their own copy doing. They're not looking at the big picture idea. Do you know what I mean? You're having a stab at it because you think it's cheaper. The money that's going to cost you in the long run, the lifetime value that we've been talking about recently, you know, it's not just, they never read that email, I'll try another one next week. It's the damage you're actually doing to a potential audience when you don't do it properly.
And a brand's reputation as well.
Of course, this is it, you know. And as for copywriters, and I do see a lot of people looking down their noses at copywriters, I must admit, and it does frustrate me. But the thing that gets me here is the first copywriting manager who I ever had was really, I don't want to say militant, but she was so convinced that copywriting was it was a really important role within the business. And when we'd go to meetings and you could see the copywriters have shown up, she would just shut it down immediately. And I used to sit there thinking, this is really embarrassing. But what she was doing is she was right. You know, what we started doing shortly after that was internal newsletters for the business to show what the copy and the creative team had done that month. And it was when we started doing the sort of internal updates and internal newsletters that other people in the business started thinking, wait a minute, these guys are good, you know, they've got good ideas and they're doing great work. So again, that's another option if you feel that you're really getting beat down by the voices, you know, and the business. But yeah, I'm not going to get angry. I honestly just let it go over my head now. I see a lot of people struggling with it. It is what it is. Yeah. Just make sure they keep your phone number for the next time they need an email writing and they can phone you back.
Okay. So our next question is from mfrankmc_. Would love to know more about what a current advertising student can do while still in school to stand out in the job market after graduation. So when I was applying for the job at the agency I now work at, one of the things I did is I looked on their website. I went, okay, what clients have they worked for? I found one. I looked at they're offering, and they're like, right, I'm going to write copy in their tone of voice best as I can, and I'm going to send it to them and go, look, here's what I would do if I was working for your agency. And I think that's part of what got me in the door.
Yeah.
And it's a willingness, it's just graft.
Yeah.
Try, just as we've said again and again, you just got to write every day.
Yeah, that's it. And again, it's one of those things that I don't condone, because it's just, there's a lot of good writers struggling out there, but you see the copy farms and the just bidding on copy jobs at a penny a word and that kind of stuff. Nobody wants to be in that world, you know. Nobody's going to write a whole day's worth of copy for £8, or if you're lucky, £8. But it's that experience. It's that when you go to apply for the real copy job at the agency or at the company, you can say, look, this is the portfolio I've done. You know, for the last 3 months, I've been working every day. I've been taking on these jobs, and just show that you're capable of doing it.
Yeah,
basically, and it's just commitment to the job, and that's something I see as well with copywriters coming through. Is a lot of them come in with the best of intentions and they want to be a copywriter, and then they realise very quickly that it's brief after brief after brief, and they really start to lose the enjoyment in it. You know, they just start to take it as, oh, it's just another job, and I've got to do this again today, and I've got to do that again today. Everybody needs to get to that point where they go, is this something I want to pursue, or is this just going to be a job until I move on to the next one?
Yeah.
And that's very much the dividing line, I think, between good long-term copywriters and people who've just had a right good go at it and have decided to go somewhere else.
Yeah, yeah.
And I can't think off the top of my head when I personally crossed that line, but I remember a point where it was becoming quite repetitive. And of course, I was working client side. I was in-house at the company. It was the same offering, same messaging, same tone of voice, same audience, and it was just day after day thinking, oh, here we go. But that's when, thank God, there was a guy, a good mate of mine at the time, who was a copywriter, and he loved it. He just lived for writing copy. And I said this to him. I said, look, I'm not getting fed up, but I'm starting to lose the energy about the job.
Yeah.
And he said, you know, if in a 2,000 word ebook you can write one really great line that you're super proud of, that's enough for that day. And I watched that guy just do just campaign after campaign, and I'd see him sitting in the office laughing at his own headlines and stuff. And I just thought, I want to be like that. And I feel like I'm like that now.
You are, yeah. I've definitely heard you laughing at your own headlines. Yeah.
I will write a headline and sit back and laugh and think, somebody's paying me to write these headlines, and that's the beauty of it. But it is, you've just got to keep going. You know, you've just got to keep going, and cross that bridge when you come to it, I think. Yeah.
And personally, I love the conceptual stuff more than anything else. That's just the way I'm built. I love coming up with new ideas and concepts for direct mails, and that's what really excites me about the job more than anything else. But that's not to say that some days just getting a 2,000 word ebook, headphones on, crack on. Yeah.
And again,
still enjoyable.
I think that comes from your ability to I think it goes back to that storytelling thing. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you love that journey of taking somebody on the story with you as you're writing it, you know, because I can see it when you get a brief for a long-term piece of content. There is a wee bit of you that thinks, right, get the headphones on, get into the story and bring them along, you know, and that's the beauty of it. And if you can take joy in every job that you do, you've got the best job in the world.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And that's honestly where I live these days. I love it. I absolutely love it. Who have we got next? Okay. Emetry.
Yeah, I'll go with that.
Go with that. I'm absolutely over the belief that marketing is something that should be rolled into other roles. I see so many executive assistant, marketing manager, and similar roles out there. Yeah, again, it's one of them.
I think it's that lack of appreciation for the copywriting role. Again, it's pretty much that, isn't it?
It's a lack of appreciation for the creative team in particular, but I also think it's a lack of foresight and planning. Mm-hmm. The old adage is, you know, any business that's cutting from the marketing team is losing.
Yeah.
Because that's where the growth in the future business comes from. And I can understand there is a point where they might go, look, we need to cut some overheads, let's combine these two roles, or let's do this and that. But they have to be very, very aware of what they're doing. there needs to be a contingency plan for, okay, if the business picks back up, we need to start reinvesting in it, because that's ultimately the future. That's the future of a business, is what is spent in that marketing team. And the other thing with that as well is I really struggle to take heed from anybody who doesn't do what we do.
Yeah.
And I've always said this, that at the moment, I think 85-90% of my job is writing. And I've tried my best to keep it at that level, because I don't want to be a people manager. I don't want to be heavily involved in big strategy. It is part of my role, but it's not all of it, because I need to know that when you come to me and say, Ken, I've got a question, or somebody comes to me and says, I need help with this copywriting, that I'm still at the peak of my game to give them that feedback.
Yeah.
And that's something that I've seen happen, where copywriters or people in the creative team, for example, go away, leave the business, take a career break, whatever it may be. Then they come back, they haven't written for 6 months, and they start dishing out feedback, and you go, well, wait a minute, I'll stop you there.
Yeah.
You don't do this anymore. You can't tell me what's going on if you haven't been here, And again, that's guaranteed to cause some fuss on social media, I can imagine, but that's just, I find it difficult to respect somebody who doesn't do what we do. Yeah. And with this idea about combination roles, and yeah, I don't know. It's not something that I've had to come across, at least at a marketing manager level. I would have to cross that bridge when I came to it, but it's definitely not something up to this point.
No, and I think if you look at the creative, if you look at a studio in any agency, that little community that exists among them, if you start trying to pull people out of that and push them into the outside agency, it doesn't work. You need to encourage creativity in that group and let it kind of,
Exactly. And again, it's a special type of people. That's why this podcast exists. If we take marketing and we break it down that one step further into the creative team of the studio, it's us. It's the people that are listening to this podcast. We are unique even within the marketing business, which is why this podcast exists. We're not like other people in marketing. And that's why this idea of job sharing or splitting roles and that kind of stuff, that creative people need to be creative on a regular basis.
Yeah. It's soul destroying otherwise, it really is.
You see the light behind their eyes going dim, and you just think, oh, they're getting beat down, and there's too many Excel documents kicking around and we're all freaking out, and that's what happens,
Okay.
Yeah, let's do it. Who have we got?
Because Eric has one.
Because Eric has one, okay.
Please do not talk about only digital writing. Mm-hmm. Every podcast and blog around seems to have forgotten about anything print, and you should discuss new trends in terminology, punctuation, wordplay. I've never seen this anywhere. Hopefully, well, not hopefully, you will be seeing that here.
Yep.
Wordplay is a big part of our everyday. We will dispute punctuation. Should this be hyphenated? Should it not? On a daily basis.
A semicolon.
Never a semicolon. That's another one that we'll argue about.
We'll be coming across that at some point, I expect. Yep. That's a conversation. Here's one for you then, and this is something that I've been thinking about in preparation for this particular question.
Okay.
Somebody comes to you, right, with a brief, whether it be 25 social posts, an infographic, an email, or an ebook, or a piece of direct mail. Are you approaching that job differently based on format, or is it the same thought process that you go through?
Number one, who am I talking to, and what am I selling, and who am I talking to?
Yep.
That's it. That's fundamental.
Okay. So what you've done there is basically you've answered this question, and you've definitely answered what we're going to be talking about in the next few weeks as well with the plan and stuff. This guy, please don't talk only about digital writing. That's a consideration. It's not. That's not something you should be doing. Is it digital? Is it online? Is it offline? They're considerations. The writing process should always be the same.
Yeah.
The 5 Ps that you and I use, the people, the product, the planning, the production, the proofing, that's not going to change. And hopefully what this person, because Eric has one, is going to see over the next few weeks is the fact that if you're using those fundamental processes to write copy, then whether it's going to be a social post or whether it's going to be a piece of direct mail shouldn't be a massive issue.
I don't think it's a massive issue. I think it is a consideration. It is a consideration.
It is.
Yeah. And I mean, formats can change. And like, if you are working from a social post and you've only got that character number, then you are going to have to be more concise. But ultimately, you should be aiming to be as concise as possible anyway. As a copywriter.
And that's exactly it. I think you need to go, okay, what's the problem? How does the product solve it? How can we tell them where to get it? How can we prove that it works?
Mm-hmm.
When it comes to doing a social post, you've still got to say all of that. You've just got to say it in maybe 140 characters.
Exactly.
And that's why it's just about, okay, how many words have I got to tell this story?
Mm-hmm.
The story ultimately is not going to change. The process you go through is not going to change. And that's why when I saw this about the digital writing, I thought, I can see where he's coming from. I mean, there is issues when you're doing landing pages, for example. You've got to get things above the fold versus when you do a direct mail and what you're doing on the outside of the envelope or the outside of the box. But again, that doesn't change what we do as writers. It just determines how many words we've got to tell that story.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Cool. Right, let me do one then. What have we got? Oh, this looks like a long one. Are we pronouncing that?
In Chobanahel.
Yep, Chobanahel. Okay. Right, what have we got here? I work at an agency and have been frustrated recently with clients expecting immediate results. I published a client's first blog recently and they got all defensive, asking why the leads weren't pouring in. Give it time, publish more content, something I'd like to hear more about. Or I guess ask you both, is how do you find the value or purpose in the content you're creating? How do you stay inspired? I work as a copywriter for 2.5 years for a website that was essentially a link farm. I did my best to make quality content, but I got to the point where I just felt I was just churning out content for the sake of keywords and link building. I feel more fulfilled at my current job, but my roommate now freelances for the previous employer, and I just wish I had some advice for her. I think there's two parts to that question, ultimately.
How do we stay inspired?
Even before that, when they talk about the leads weren't pouring in shortly after posting a blog.
That's a good point. Publish more content. Yeah.
I mean, that there is an education piece. And again, this is something you and I have to do on a regular basis. There's a tendency that I've definitely seen over the last few years of marketing managers and whatnot going to conferences, going to events, reading things they've seen online, hearing buzzwords, and then going, we need that here. No understanding of the background of it, no understanding about the actual process. They've just heard someone say, this gets results, you need to try that.
Yeah.
And then jumping on it. And rightly so, because at the end of the day, if your job is to generate leads and sales, then you're going to be looking for all of these opportunities. Rightly so. But having said that, there needs to be some sort of education process in place. And unfortunately, in most instances, that falls to us.
Yep.
When we get the brief that says, okay, I need a blog, I need content, I need stuff that's going to generate data from landing page forms and inbound leads and inbound marketing and all of these kind of things. How quickly can you do it? How quickly can I see results? You know as well as I do, we have to go, I'll stop you there. We need to have a chat.
Yeah. I heard that conversation going on at your desk on the daily.
Yeah, because when you're doing that inbound content or you're doing lead nurturing or you're trying to build up this trust with the audience and this brand positioning piece, you could be talking 18 months from getting from a prospect to a sale.
Yeah.
And exactly like this person's just said, one blog post and then coming back the following day going, where's my leads?
I'll tell you the other thing that you've made me think about now as well is something we've both come across. If you haven't got the method in place for measuring results, then there's no basis for what you're doing, and it's fundamental, but you see it. It's something I've seen, and if you've not got a process in place for seeing how many people are reading what you're doing, how many people are engaging with it, then it's almost useless.
Feel free, have a rant, because that is definitely one of those things that, again, it seems to come to the copywriters to ask that question, and I think we're well within our rights to do it, and it helps the businesses that we work for. Why are we doing this? How are we going to know it's worked?
Yes.
Fundamental stuff. And like you've just said with blogs and that kind of stuff, just keep churning out blogs all day long, fill your boots. We don't know if they're working, we don't know if there's engagement, we don't know if anybody's gone through to buy or become a lead.
I think this is one of the problems you come across is it can get so insular in an agency, and when you're working with a client where, okay, we want this image in, we want to mention this feature, this benefit, that they forget who they're talking to. And at that point, you have to just sitting down with them and going, wait a minute, our audience have no interest in what you're talking about anymore. You're just wanking yourself off essentially.
Yeah, very much so. And that's definitely something that we see that I don't jump on it, but I definitely say to people, look, can we just have a meeting, or can we just stop and have a chat about this? You know, the usual workplace professionalism stuff. Can I grab you for 10 minutes just for a quick chat? But ultimately it breaks down to that, what are you doing? Yeah. Because exactly like you've said, one of these things happens where this is what we're going to do. Let's crack on and do it. You haven't even considered the audience at this point. Yeah. You are just doing this to show your latest product, your latest something or other. You haven't stopped to think if anybody wants it. It's just that's what you've produced and you need to sell it. Yeah. And you just think, oh, mate, you know. And again, with the lack of metrics, that's something that there's no excuse for it. There's no excuse for it. In today's world, with the technology that we've got and the data capturing abilities that a lot of this technology brings, there is no way that you should be doing any sort of copywriting, content, marketing, whatever it is, and not be able to determine what the outcomes are. Exactly. In a very granular way. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. At the highest level of detail possible. Yeah, exactly. And if you are doing that, again, best of luck to you. I don't know what else to say to that, you know.
So off the back of what we've said about considering audience and that being a fundamental, that is for me one of the ways I stay inspired. Is when I am writing something, thinking about the individual that I'm writing to. It makes the exercise of doing it so much more interesting, because you're thinking, how can I appeal to this one person, Janet from Newport, who loves dogs and cries herself to sleep at night, whoever it is. I feel like I really need to phone Janet, make sure she's all right. Whoever it is, thinking about how I can actually appeal to her, that gives me something to focus on with in my writing, and it makes every line count. What is Janet interested in? What upsets her? Yeah, it makes it much more entertaining. And this is the other thing as well, which I also thoroughly enjoy, is if you're working for a client whose product isn't industry leading, or who doesn't have any really clear benefits, or it's just a product that's really bizarre. Yeah. And you think, how am I going to make that sound appealing to Janet, for example? And you think, I need to do some work here, you know. That's the bit I love. And it feels, it's like a journalist. It's trying to find the story. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? It's like looking at the product going, okay, what is the difference between the features, advantages and benefits of this product? What is Janet actually going to be interested in? And then how can I convey that to her in a way that's going to make her life easier and get sales? I love that. I love it. And some of the products that I've written for, and I've been training on them and all this kind of thing, and some of the sheer scale and array of things that I've seen is just baffling. Yeah. I mean, I forgot my wedding anniversary 2 years ago, but I could tell you what the difference is between grass seeds on a golf course and in a play park. That's where my head goes, because this is the bit that I love, just getting involved, you know, and nitpicking and getting into the information to create that story. And like you said, as long as you've got that approach, it's the best job in the world. Yeah. You know? So right, we're on to Twitter now. Thanks everybody, first of all, who did messages on Reddit. Feel free to keep getting in touch and keep messaging us. Have we got more? We've got loads more from Reddit. Oh, I was looking at the wrong page. Okay, go on. But we are getting short on time, so do you want to jump to Twitter? Yeah, why not? I don't know. We can always come back to Reddit on another okay, we've got episode. Twitter, we've got LinkedIn. Okay, here's one. Let's leave Twitter. That's not to say that we won't answer these questions in future, and anybody who is messaging us on Twitter, please do so. Continue to do so. It means a lot. The reason I'm jumping to this one is because it was a message that we got from LinkedIn that I think it's
it's a great example of everything that we've been talking about so far. Again, Vaidehi Thakkar.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Go with that?
Yeah.
Okay, apologies if that's not how your name is pronounced. The question, what keeps the creative guys different from marketing guys who are the strategic thinker? Massive, I think, for us, because again, it comes back to what we talked about through this podcast, and as we'll continue to do so, I think copywriters and designers, very much so thrown into this mix, have a duty at some point to go, oh, what are we doing this for?
Yeah.
Who's agreed this? How have we ended up here? And that's because I understand it, get it. The world we live in is very data driven. Data suggests, AI and all that kind of stuff. I can look at data and say, okay, there's an opportunity here, or this is something we need to pounce on, or basically it can be driven, the marketing ideas can be driven by data, which is great, don't get me wrong, but sooner or later someone has to go, stop, what are we doing? And I think that's something that the copywriters do. I've seen you do it, it's definitely something I do. The design team that we work with, they certainly do it as well. And I also think because we're on that front line and we are the ones with the kind of journalistic approach where we're finding the story, I think it also goes the other way. I think it's not just a case of saying, stop, how have we ended up here, but also stop, have you thought about this?
Yeah.
We've found this information, we should be using this. That to me is, again, it's that added value you get as a copywriter. That is, as a freelancer, I think can be very valuable. If somebody comes to you and says, I need an email, and you say, yep, no worries, by the way, I've thought about this and that, I'd employ that person again.
Definitely, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
What did you, with 2 years experience, what do you think of the strategic stuff? Is it something that you wanted to be involved in? Is it something that you've had to just jump into? And
well, as I say, day one, you sat me down and you took me through strategy. You took me through the marketing funnel and you made me understand why we do things in the way that we do, why we might start with an infographic to get people interested, then go to like a tip sheet, then go to an ebook and take people on a journey. And having that understanding brought so much more logic to my process. And in the same way, if I'm writing an ebook, I don't just sit down and start writing. I plan. I think I section out into, okay, what are the key things my audience need to know? In what order of importance is it going to come? Like, all of these things are important. And so strategic thinking is a big part of my daily life. And even outside of copywriting, like writing creatively, it's the same thing. You have to be strategic about your process, and it's having that discipline. If you just try and throw creativity at anything without really taking the time to think about what the end result is, you're not going to get something that's a lasting result. Yeah.
And one of the things I see that happening a lot at the moment is social media.
Yeah.
Social media is a great one for, we need a social campaign on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram. Do any of your audience use that? Have you checked if any of your audience are there? And again, it's one of those things where the data's there. They know that it's just someone hasn't stopped them and gone, just have a minute, just take a moment, let's have a chat about this. You're massive on LinkedIn. You've got virtually no engagement on Twitter. Stop putting money in it. Yeah. Literally, let's just start putting it where it needs to be, and we can get better results. You know. And again, I think that's just from as a creative team perspective, because we're not face down in all of that information all of the time. We can work on 20, 30 different clients at the same time. We don't get bogged down in that kind of area. So when people do come and ask us a question, we can take an outside glance and say, right, wait a minute, that doesn't look right, And that's why when we go back to that question the person asked at the beginning about the importance of copywriters and how it's I can do it myself job, that's why I'm at that point in my career now where I go, if you want to do it yourself, go on. Because I can see the value that people like you and I bring to these things, and other copywriters and other designers, to have that external viewpoint and the almost second nature strategic thing. That's where, when we come to sit down and do a brief, we're as valuable as any other member of the team.
And you see it when you get paired up with a designer to say work on like whether it be conceptualizing an infographic or doing a direct mail. they're not just thinking about how can I make this look pretty. They're thinking what's the most what imagery is going to best suit how this client, like what is my audience going to be most receptive to. They're considering that just as much as we do. And when you pair that combo up of a designer and a copywriter,
that's where the magic happens, isn't it?
Yeah. Some of the stuff that comes out.
That's very much where the magic happens. So we've got more questions. Like you said, there's a whole other page here from people on Reddit, and we've got Twitter we haven't touched. Is there any in particular that you want to pick out before we start wrapping up? Because I'm conscious that we've got so many more questions to get through that we are going to have to. I would love marketing podcasts with how-tos.
And a general learning experience.
Yeah, you're in the right place. That's exactly what we're going to do. I mean,
working with an audience for the most part, I don't understand. If you could cover that in an episode, I would be really grateful. Dyslexic Space Otter. He wants to know how to work with an audience he doesn't understand.
I mean, I think his first issue is if he is a dyslexic space otter.
That is going to be difficult.
Writing is a challenge.
Yeah.
Anyway. But as for his question, that's, again, some of the things that you and I have found whilst researching an audience is hilarious. Start with audience magazines from that particular industry. Every industry will usually have an industry magazine or an industry body get stuck in.
Yeah.
Some of them are brilliant. Laundry has its own magazine. That's always a good one.
It's always fleets of cars. Fleet magazine it might be.
Yeah.
There's a few of
that's
them.
Always a good one.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I had to do this last week actually, and I'm trying to think of the process I went through when I was doing the actual research on this, and it was to do with, I think it might have been logistics or something, and I thought, okay, how can I get as much information as I can about this industry and about these buyers as quickly as possible? Started on LinkedIn, joined a lot of groups on logistics, warehousing, all that kind of stuff. Get in the group and start reading the posts. What are people talking about? What are their issues? What are the things that just keep cropping up in these rooms? Have a look at the industry magazines. Again, warehouse and logistics magazines, with loads of them. What's the front page story?
Yeah.
You know, what's big in that industry at the moment? Get stuck into that, find out what's going on. One of the things I did was I started looking at, okay, who, not necessarily who's famous, but who's a big name in that industry as a person, as an individual. Go on their LinkedIn and see if they've written any articles on their LinkedIn profile. Again, read through them. Within, I don't know, 3 hours, I had a pretty straight, comprehensive idea of what was going on in that industry, you know, what these individuals were struggling with. That's information that's freely available. I didn't pay for anything. I didn't subscribe to anything. That was there. And for this person, and I'm going to be honest, I know it can be difficult in B2C. I know that if you don't have, like Coke, for example, who's Coke's audience? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's one of those, I'm not saying this person works for Coke, but what I'm saying is if you take Coca-Cola as a brand, or Apple's another good example, when you're selling literally billions of units, who is the audience? How can you then determine who that audience is? You could be going for an old gran who stays at home and likes listening to podcasts. You could be going to a child in primary school, high school, who's trying to look cool in front of their mates. How do you market to them? Do you know what I mean? And this is the bit where, if you're doing campaigns, ultimately they should be segmented to those groups for
definitely.
obvious reasons. But if there is if you've got an audience, let's take, for example, the warehousing and logistics thing again, where you know who you're going after and you just haven't got the information about them, it's there, you just got to look.
Yeah.
You've just got to get stuck in. And this is something I see you doing on a regular basis, because as we've discussed in this podcast, we can't write without that information in front of us.
Yeah. And I think one of the things that's really helped me is to just understand psychology and human nature as best you can. Like, the more you can understand about how people think, because we think emotionally, we're emotional creatures, and that's a huge part of copywriting. It's written, you're not appealing to factual thinkers the majority of the time, you're appealing to emotional people. And whether B2C or B2B, you're talking to an individual at the end process. I think that can get lost as well. So the more you can understand just about the way people think, the more you can appeal to that.
Yeah, and that's something you've taught me. I mean, as much as I've shown you, as much as I know about copywriting, what you've brought to the table very much is this psychology and this human approach. And the one thing I would say is whereas you've got qualifications and actually went through a learning process in that subject, I didn't. I've just been given the links that you've sent me, or check out this website, have a look at this. And it's been in that process that I've been able to go, I get it. You know, that's a really smart idea. We need to be using that.
Yeah.
So again, it's not something you have to retrain. You don't have to go back to college. You don't have to do any of those things. You just have to start using the available information that's there to upskill, you know, to grow your knowledge base. So yeah, it's, as for the research in the audience, speak to your manager. If it's one of those organizations who's got a data manager, or we've got data scientists, do you know what I mean? Again, with the growth in data in the world we live in, these roles are becoming much more common. Speak to them, take them for a coffee, sit them down, grill them.
Yeah.
Just literally say to them, what can you tell me that I don't already know? Show me some numbers, show me some figures. We do it on the regular with the guy in our work that specialises in the data. I will literally just go across to that guy some days and say, show me charts. You just show me something, because it's with that information that we can then start becoming better at what we do.
Exactly. And even if you have someone at your job, I had a meeting with our HR manager the other day. I said to him, by the way, I might have to have a word with you soon, just to get some more understanding of the pain points, what you experience in your role. Because if you can sit down and really have a conversation with somebody who you know you're going to be talking to in the future, then you can find out stuff that you'd never get to discover from searching online. Just having a conversation with someone and really understanding the things they face on the day-to-day. Yeah.
I mean, we did that with the tech guy as well, remember?
Yeah.
We dragged him in and just grilled him. Again, he didn't ask for any of that, but he got it that particular morning, and the information he gave us was, again, unbelievable.
Yeah.
Just from a human standpoint, this is my job and this is what I struggle with. Bosh. Awesome. So yeah, everything is an opportunity for learning. You just got to get on with it, you know? So yeah, is there anything else you want to cover off from the questions that we've got? No?
No, I think I'm happy.
Cool.
Is there any ones that you really want to get to?
There's nothing that I really want to get to. I think, if nothing else, today's been a good example of the sort of broad range of questions that we've got from the people that are listening. You know, there's a lot of people struggling with a lot of very different, very varied problems, and that's all right. We can talk through them as we go through the next few podcasts and the next few episodes. A lot of this stuff, I think, we'll be able to help people by showing them how we've done it.
Yeah.
I think it's definitely going to be a case of us talking through, okay, this was a challenge, this is how we solved it. Is that going to work for you? But again, equally, it's also one of those things where it's about you guys and the audience and the community of creative people working in marketing telling us this is how we've done it. This is the problems we had. This is how we solved it. That's what it's about, you know, and this is why we want to do it. Going forward, social pages, we are predominantly on Twitter at Copy Podcast. We are posting on Reddit. We haven't got to LinkedIn yet, but I think that's probably going to be coming up as well. But if you've got any questions, if you've got anything you want to tell us, if you've got anything that you want to show us, any good examples, that's a good one. Good examples of copy, good examples of design. Ping them through to the Twitter feed. We'll pick them up. We can put them on the podcast, and we'll talk through them, because at the end of the day, we're all still learning. You know, that's why we do what we do. So yeah, keep in touch. Having mentioned Hayley, our friend who designed the logo, again, a big thanks to her. What we're thinking is to try and get some creativity flowing. If you're a copywriter and you want to design, or you want to write a strapline for us, fill your boots, have a go at it. If you're a designer, if you want to do something different with a logo, show us how you would do that in your style, or and however you think it could be, have a go, send it in. I don't think there's much more that we need to cover other than good and bad examples. Yeah. And this is something that we really want the community, we really want the audience to start bringing to our attention. It's something that Harriet and I have been doing over the last few weeks as well, because there's two types of copy. There's good examples and there's terrible warnings, and both of those can teach us. And the ones I've picked this week are, I believe they're solicitors, but I'm not sure. But the line that they're using at the moment is the expert hand with the human touch. Why are you laughing? What were you laughing? I thought that was a great line.
Expert hand with the human touch. That's good. Yeah. No, it's.
What made me think, right, why I really like it is because it's a solicitors, right?
Mm-hmm.
You only phone a solicitors when you've got a problem. When that's the case, you don't want a massive corporate business with no human emotion involved.
Mm-hmm.
But equally, you don't want a guy who's really helpful but hopeless at being a solicitor.
Yeah.
So, do you know what I mean? So you really want to get that perfect mix of, we're a big organisation, but we've got empathy and understanding and the hand and touch, you know.
See, I just envisioned this giant hand,
right?
And yeah, that's where my head went. Hence
Okay.
the laughter. But no, I get it. It does. It works. The expert hand with the human touch. Yeah.
I quite liked it. So yeah, that's the two things that I certainly picked up on in the last couple of weeks. And if you've got anything that you've seen, by all means, send it in. We can discuss it. We can do little printouts, or we can do screen grabs. We can do whatever, so just let us know. So yeah, I think that's it for episode 1.
Brilliant.
Happy days. So yeah, you now know what we're all about. You now can appreciate, hopefully, that we are not about buzzwords and bullshit. It's not what we do here. We are literally two writers who are just sharing our experiences with each other and with you. And we've got a lot planned for the coming weeks and months, hopefully.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, hit us up on Twitter. Keep your eye. This is going out on SoundCloud, YouTube, Spotify,
Mm-hmm.
Apple Podcasts. We're getting it as far and wide as we possibly can. If you can do your bit as well, if you're in a creative team or you know people who work creatively in marketing, let them know we exist, send them links. Let's get it spread as far and wide as possible so that when we do start having these conversations about best practice, we can get as many opinions as we possibly can. All right,
Tight. Yeah.
Happy
Wonderful.
days. Cool. Right, so we will see you shortly. Probably going to be a couple of weeks till we get the next episode up and running, but that's all right. Keep listening, keep in touch, and we'll speak to you soon.
Take care.
Cheers, guys.